Murnane is here today. Super excited to have you. And I am just so thrilled to have you on today. I have your cookbook right here. For those who don't know, I do have her cookbook, and it is like a Bible in my kitchen.
That's so nice.
I am not vegan or am I vegetarian, but this is just, to me, just so much hope and so much inspiration to get there and get to a better place. So I wanted to start with your journey with endometriosis. When did you actually find out that you had endo?
Wait, can I just say that I feel like you're causing everyone less pain by just how happy you are. It's like contagious. You're so, like, I want your smile. I want everything. So whatever you're doing is working too.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, it's crazy. And I think the thing with everyone's endo journey is that it probably started way before we were actually diagnosed. But then we kind of talk about it when we were first diagnosed. But like most of us have been dealing this since we were 12 or 13. Yes. So it's kind of crazy. So I guess, it's crazy. I also think that so many of us have moms or sisters or aunts that had endo that was probably undiagnosed. So then that was our role model of what period should be. So I think all through high school, it was going home early from school the day I got my period, bleeding through my pants. I remember I wore these white shorts one day, just like blood on the back, like tying a little jean jacket around your waist, walking. So I had all the endo stuff happening before I knew that I had it. But then once I was finally diagnosed, which I think is pretty common for a lot of us, it wasn't until I was 28 or 29.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Which, it takes 10 years, 8 years average to get diagnosed. So it was interesting because once I was diagnosed, and I don't know if I'm sure so many people can relate, I kind of thought like, okay, so now it's going to get better.
Right.
But it didn't get better.
Right.
I feel like it just gave a name to it.
Absolutely.
But not any help. And then I think I remember getting diagnosed, and like there wasn't Instagram at the time to kind of go and find community. So I just went on these really depressing message boards of people saying, I have this and my life sucks. And I'm like, wait, what? There's like no hope?
Yeah.
So it got to a point where it got worse. I was on different birth control pills, which for me made my endo worse because it just mentally, it didn't put me in a good place.
Right.
And I had a couple surgeries, I had ablation surgeries, and finally got to the point where a doctor was like, hysterectomy or drug hormone therapy. Wow. And I thought the hysterectomy would be the best way to go. And so in my mind, I had made that decision. I will get a hysterectomy. And also not knowing what we know now, that hysterectomy it doesn't take away the pain necessarily. So then a friend slipped in, and she's actually who I dedicated my book to, the front page to Amanda. It makes me cry thinking about it. She went and did this research on her own and found that a plant-based diet and lifestyle tools could help endometriosis. And she sent me an email, and I always think, like, what if I missed that email? Like, it makes me, like, we wouldn't be here today.
It's always the divine intervention moments, right?
I know.
Like, I don't think there's ever been just like a this, and I found my solution. Like, it was always like that one little moment and that tweak in your life that brought you on a journey of healing. So yeah. I'm sorry, but yes.
No, yeah, it is. And, I clicked on this link. It was this kind of outdated website and this was 8 or 9 years ago. So there wasn't the stuff that we have now.
Right.
And I just remember thinking, I want to do this for my friend, but she doesn't understand how bad this is. Like, changing my diet and doing yoga is going to do nothing for me. But I thought, I'm going to get the hysterectomy anyway. I'll just do this. And I tried it, and it worked.
Yeah.
And I say that it worked. It was very hard.
Yes.
It was very complicated. But changing my diet, which then led me to be able to exercise again, which then led me to have a more clear head. It was this domino effect. and I ended up not getting a hysterectomy.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so yeah.
How long were you on your first plant-based diet before you actually saw a change in your cycle?
I mean, here's the thing. I ate horrible, so I kind of had to change pretty instantly. I mean, if you go from eating just like pizza and French fries and candy to like not doing that, you're gonna feel better whether you have endo or not. So,
This is true.
but so for me, I felt a change pretty quickly, but I think one of the biggest changes wasn't just in the symptoms, it was just me not feeling so depressed anymore, because it breaks my heart, but I think so many of us, depression isn't a symptom of endo, but I think sometimes when you live with chronic pain, it can become a huge symptom for endo.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, if it's not endo that causes your depression, it's the medication that you're on that can cause the depression. It's the lack of life changes that causes the depression. It's just people around you who don't understand your lifestyle can cause the depression. And like you said, it's like there's a positive domino effect when you change your life, but there's also just having endo that it's compounded issue, right? Like it affects every single part of your life that people don't realize. And then you're like, why do I feel this way? And then you feel guilty for feeling that way. But it's so many women out there who go through it. So I appreciate you bringing that up. That's definitely true.
Yeah, it was tough. And I mean, I definitely, I noticed that when I always do the diet thing. That's like my non-negotiable, but sometimes I might slip a little bit with the movement or slip a little bit with the stress management, and those kind of heavy feelings come back again. So I know that this isn't I'm going to do this for a couple weeks, and it has to be all the time.
Consistent. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so tell me the day that you found out what endo was in your life. Like, how did the day that you realized that this is what I have, what was that day?
That's a great question. It was coming out of a surgery. It was them, a doctor thinking that I might have it, because we now know that I had a cyst that ruptured, but my doctor thinking that I had it, going in for a surgery, exploratory surgery to see if I had it, and then waking up with them ending up having to basically give me a C-section to like remove a bunch of cysts, laparotomy, and then me waking up the next day and saying, you have endometriosis.
Wow.
So I mean, it was like the most like traumatic way of finding out, but that's the only way that any of us can find out, is through surgery. It's not like your doctor can sit down with you at a desk and say, no, we need to talk. It's like the only way to find out is through surgery.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry that had to be such a traumatic moment. I can say that I share, just like you and everybody else, I share the same moment. I think for me, though, I knew going in, like, this has to be endo. It can't be anything else. But I think that every woman's processing of, like, what endo is, when you first hear that word, like, you have it, it's such like it's a fork in the road, right? It's like either I'm going to tackle this and do everything I can to get past it, or I'm just going to allow it to take over my life. So how did you actually birth the book, One Part Plant?
Well, it's crazy because I'm glad that we're talking about this, because so much of that book is that I didn't want it to be an endo book, because I just really thought this type of food can help so many people. And I kind of, I don't want to say I forced my publisher, but I said there has to be a little page about endo in the book, like just a tiny little bit of information. And from that, what's been greater than people saying, like, I made your cookie recipe, is people messaging me and saying, this is the first time I'd ever seen, I always get emotional at this part, this is the first time I'd ever seen all my symptoms on one page in a cookbook.
Yes.
And then they go to their doctor and find out they have endo. So I think as much as this book was born of me wanting to share plant-based recipes, ultimately I now know, I think the important work was the endo page.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just to be able to have that platform to just share a little bit of information, But yeah, and the whole mission of One Part Plant is to get people to try to eat at least one plant-based meal a day. And because when I changed my diet, it was so hard
Yes.
that I just wanted other people to know that I know that it's hard. And if you could just start with one meal a day, it can turn into two, it can turn into three. Maybe you just stay with two.
Right.
But it's a slow, because I think so much information out there is so all or nothing, black or white. It's like, do keto or don't. It's like,
Yes.
where's the middle ground? Like, help me here.
Yes. And I want to say thank you too. I think you were the first person that lives this lifestyle that did not judge me when I told you about like how I eat. So
No
because
way.
it's like you said, like it has to be a gradual approach or else you will cause yourself to go into a flare up, just changing everything so drastically. But
And that's stress, man. That's
yes.
stress on your body. You shouldn't be stressed about the food that's trying to make you better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just want to say thank you for that. Like, I appreciate it. So what is the OPP philosophy?
I mean, truly One Part Plant is, like I said, my mission to get people to eat at least one plant-based meal a day. And to define plant-based is whole food, plant-based diet. So it's vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, basically nothing that's coming from an animal, but more importantly, these whole foods are anti-inflammatory. So I think especially with endo, and I think I told you this before, it drives me insane when doctors say, well, food is not going to help your endo. But it's like, if we have an inflammatory condition and we're following a more anti-inflammatory diet, there's no way that it can't just help a little tiny bit. I'm not saying it's a cure. Obviously, we know it's not a cure, but like, what if it could help this much? So, so I think One Part Plant is definitely in a space of plant-based food, but I think for us endo people, it's more of a focus on anti-inflammatories. But I also think your anti-inflammatory can be different than someone else's. For instance, nightshades really mess me up. It's a plant, but tomatoes and eggplant sometimes aren't my friends.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of making your own version of plant-based diet too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me, what was your first one plant meal?
Well, I wrote about it in the book that it was a salsa taco.
And that's delicious.
It was, I was like, what could I actually make? Because I didn't cook at all.
Right.
I went to the store. I was like, I bet I could make salsa and I can buy corn tortillas. And so and I'm not kidding you, I ate those for like 2 weeks straight. So I was like, and I remember, this is so embarrassing. I have a friend that owns a pretty popular restaurant in LA, and pre-restaurant days, I remember sending her a text of how proud I was of this salsa taco, and she was like, great job.
Well, I mean, that's what started it. And that's the thing. If you can find one thing that you love to eat every day,
right,
it helps more than people actually can imagine. Right?
Right.
Like that's one meal that's substituting something that probably won't help your body. So congrats on the tacos. I might have tacos tonight just because of that. Just because of that. Okay, so I have a personal question for you.
Okay.
I cannot get past cheese.
Okay.
What is your advice on somebody like me who has endo and needs to get rid of cheese out of their diet? Like, I can get rid of milk. I can let that go. I can find other ways to get my probiotics besides yogurt. Like, I can do that. But when it comes to cheese, that is just my go-to. Like, I have to have cheese in my life.
Well, I guess the first question I would ask you is, how does it make you feel when you eat it? So and not mental, mental, physical.
Physical, okay. So I will say this. I'm not as bad as my husband because he's very lactose. So he's usually, like, running to the restroom. Mm-hmm. But for me, I feel like I don't have a real flare-up from cheese, but it does cause me to have a bowel movement, which I know is bad. When I know I'm about to have a cycle or a flare-up, then I stay away from it purposefully. But it's like, it's not as bad as other things that I eat, right? But I do know, like, that is on my list of things to get rid of in 2019. Some way, shape, or form, either finding vegan cheese or some type of substitute for the flavor that I love, but I definitely would love your advice on how to get rid of cheese.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, well, I see it in two different camps. One, the how does it make you feel? And it sounds like you understand how it makes you
Yes.
feel. So you can choose
Yes.
whether to feel that way or not.
Right.
And I think that there are a lot of great alternatives. I don't know if you've made the lasagna recipe in my book. It tastes cheesy and delicious. You will not know that there is not cheese in that lasagna.
Okay.
Um,
I'm gonna bookmark
I
that.
I had a woman reach out to me and say that her Italian mother-in-law loves that lasagna, and so I feel like that's a mother-in-law and an Italian person that likes the lasagna. I think that's a win. And
Okay.
I think there are, and I'm happy to email you, and we can include in the notes some great plant-based cheese alternatives.
Yes.
But I just think it's just, if you still want to eat it, obviously that's your choice, but maybe you choose to eat it not around your cycle, or
Yes.
maybe you choose to eat it not when you know it's going to give you the period poop of pain. Um, and then I think second, you can also look at it from an environmental reason. You can look at it in other ways, because sometimes that's the thing that helps you finally decide to make a change. Maybe you're not able to make it for yourself, but maybe you look at the research and you say, wow, it's actually better for the planet if I'm not eating dairy.
Absolutely.
So you can kind of make decisions based on other things too.
Yes. And I love your tier approach, right? It's like, okay, let's start with making sure that you don't have a flare up around the worst time. And that, to me, that's like the perfect way to think for an endo girl. It's like, I'm not trying to change your whole life. I just want you to take the stairway to a better life. So
yeah,
thank you. I appreciate that. And what is next for Jessica?
I just got a partnership with Whole Foods this year, which I'm really excited about. If we have Endo sisters that have Whole Foods or one close by, and even if you don't, I'm doing a lot of education with them around plant-based foods and fruits and vegetables. And then I gotta write an Endo book. I mean, I'm working on the proposal now. It's not finished yet. Nobody even knows this, but I feel like I can tell you. So yeah, I don't want to write another cookbook. I want to write a book for Endo women.
I love it.
Because we need help.
We do. And I feel like the more voices that we have to this makes such a bigger difference for younger girls and just women going through it and not even knowing that they're going through it. So I commend you on that. I think that's absolutely amazing. And I did see the Whole Foods post that you did over citrus. So cute and adorable. And it has me really thinking about like how I can make citrus more fun in my life. Because I was like, Jessica just comes up with these great concepts and it just rolls off your tongue so easily when you're talking about food. I can tell it's a passion of yours. So thank you so much, because we need that right now.
And I want to tell you though, I used to not care or think I could ever cook. So I just, like, it's very important for me. Like, I didn't learn to cook till I was 33. It's not something that I feel like it takes practice.
It does.
And so whenever anyone says I'm a horrible cook, it's like, yes, so was I. But you practice like anything and you can get better at it.
That is a lot of inspiration right there. Because I seriously, some days, and I love to cook, but even for me, some days I'm like, this is so hard. It's life-changing.
And that's the thing, is choose easy recipes.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing. People are like, oh, this recipe was so hard. It's like, yeah, because it has 20 ingredients and like it takes 2 days to make. Make something that takes 30 minutes.
This is true. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So I have your lasagna down that I'm going to be making. And then what is your favorite recipe out of your book?
I think the chocolate chip cookies are a big one, just because they were sort of my gateway into knowing that I could still have delicious food.
Yeah.
Following a plant-based diet. The lasagna is pretty smoking. And then I also love the buffalo hummus recipe.
Okay.
Which is one of those where chickpeas gives me a little bloat. So chickpeas are kind of like your dairy is my chickpeas. I have to kind of choose when to eat them.
I have to, I don't do chickpeas a lot, but now I want to try it and see like how it affects me. I want to see if that makes me feel.
But that's the thing, is like, it's almost singling out ingredients, because if you had chickpeas with cheese, which one is it? The cheese or the chickpeas? Like, you don't know.
Both. All right, Jessica, so tell everybody where we can find you.
You can find me over at jessicamurnane.com. I also have a website called Know Your Endo, which is just really no personal journey or blog. It's just literally straight up information about endo. I just wanted to create a resource, and then also the One Part podcast.
Absolutely. And I just want to let you know, I did have Know Your Endo down on my notes. We just are like flowing, and I forgot to go back to that. But okay, just really quickly, like tell me about Know Your Endo. How did that birth, and what's your concept behind that?
So after I wrote the book and I was getting so many messages from people with endo, and they're like, what site should I go to? I was able to send them to a lot of cool Instagram pages or a lot of cool personal blogs, but I couldn't find anything that was just, I keep on doing this because I'm mocking the computer, but I couldn't find anything that was just a straight up endo information. Like, here is what it is. And then I also have the Ask the Doctor section because I'm not a doctor. And so I have a doctor answering the most asked questions that I get, you know, everything from like, what about hormone therapy? Like, what does a hysterectomy do to my body? Because these are things that when you get diagnosed, you start Googling everything and you have to go to 100 websites. And I just wanted there to be one. So
Absolutely.
So that's what Know Your Endo is. And then I also have a Know Your Endo course, which we work through management tools. So again, green juice is not a cure, but if you can learn to eat better for your endo, move more, have stress-free management tools, we do all of that in the course.
I love it. And I know we haven't met in person, but I swear our thought process is the same, because even for me, when people give me those messages, I was like, sometimes I don't know the answer. So I did the same exact thing for my website. I was like, one place, all the endo information I have, everything that I promise to God I know. And if I don't know, I put somebody on there who you can find the answer from. So I appreciate that, because we need more of that on the web.
Yes.
But thank you, Jessica. This is awesome. I'm super excited to make my lasagna and my cookies. And thank you so much for being candid about your journey, because it's not easy. And sometimes people just don't want to share it. But I completely connect with everything that you're saying. So thank you.
I connect with you in that smile. Thank you.